Hey guys, we are on our final tax planning strategy, and this one is the conversion strategy. So, when I think of conversion, the word that I think about is changing. So, whenever we're converting something, we're changing something from one type of income to another. And so we looked at this a little bit with some chapter 1 problems, but we're going to definitely look at it some more here now in chapter 3. So some things to keep in mind and why this conversion strategy can be helpful. Different activities can be taxed at different rates. So in the instance of investments, ordinary income is taxed at ordinary rates. So if we apply that to an investment, for an example, if we invest in a corporate bond, the interest income on or generated from that bond would get taxed at ordinary tax rates. Whereas if we invested in a city or municipal bond, muni bond, the interest income from those bonds is tax exempt, so we wouldn't have to pay any tax on it. The other piece that we're going to add in here, so this part is going to be a little new to us. We've briefly mentioned it here or there, but now we're really going to start looking at it. If we were to invest in a stock, and we held it for over a year, long-term capital gains are taxed at what are called preferential rates. So those capital gains taxes, they're either 0%, 15%, or 20%. Sorry, it's supposed to be a comma there. Either 0, 15, or 20%, depending on what your tax bracket is. And we're definitely going to talk a lot about these preferential tax rates in, I think it's chapter 7 is all about investments. But these are some things to keep in mind because it'll help any exam problems about conversion strategies make a little more sense. And so with that, let's take a look at an example problem. All right, so in our example problem, Martha Stewart is contemplating 3 different investments, each with the same amount of risk. A high dividend stock that pays 7.3% dividends annually with no appreciation potential. B, taxable corporate bonds that pay 8% interest annually. And C, tax-exempt municipal bonds that pay 5% interest annually. Assume that dividends are taxed at 20% and that Martha's marginal tax rate on ordinary I'll start that sentence over. Assume that dividends are taxed at 20% and that Martha's marginal tax rate on ordinary income is 37%. Which investments should Martha choose? All right, so whenever we're looking at this problem, to answer the question, hold on, let me highlight it so we know what our final question is supposed to be. To answer which investment should Martha choose, the way we will want to answer that is, or the way we'll be able to tell what that answer is which, sorry guys, hold on. I'm having so many issues with my Apple Pen today. I'm so sorry. which investment has the highest after-tax rate, oh my gosh, after-tax rate of return. So it is important to note that in the problem, all of these rates in here, so the 7.3, the 8, and the 5%, those are all pre-tax rates. And in order to answer the question, we need to know what the after-tax rate of return is for each of these investments. So if we think all the way back to chapter 1, we learned about a handy formula. And that is, I'm going to see if I can find a good place to write this. So we learned that after tax rate of return equals pre-tax rate of return times 1 minus our tax rate. So this formula is going to be used a lot in this problem to help us figure this out. So let's get some information organized. Down here where it says assume that dividends are, that paragraph, assume that dividends are taxed at 20%. So I'm going to add this 20% up here so that way I have my information organized. And assume that Martha's marginal tax rate on ordinary income is 37%. So that 37% is going to apply to our taxable corporate bonds. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, that does not look like a 37%. And then for the tax exempt bonds, they were even nice enough to tell us that it was tax exempt. For our tax rate, I'll just put a 0% out here. So that way we have all that available. Now let's go through and set up our problem. So I will color coordinate these so that way you know which math is related to which part. So I'll do A in red, B in blue, and C in green. Okay, let's go. So we want our after-tax rate of return for the stock. To calculate that after-tax rate of return, I will do A for after-tax rate of return, or A to signal after-tax rate of return. And then let's plug in our information. So A equals our pre-tax rate of return of 7.3, so I'll do the decimal version. So 0.073 times 1 minus our tax rate of 20%. Oh, I'm so sorry. That was terrible. Okay. 0.2 for 20%. And that gets us an after-tax rate of return of 1 minus 0.2 times 0.073. So our after-tax rate of return is 0.0584, or if we want to put it in a percent, so move that over, 5.84%. For our corporate bond, our after-tax rate equals 8% pre-tax rate of return times, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry guys, times 1 minus our 37% tax rate, so 0.37. And that, whenever we enter all those numbers into our calculator, that gets us 0.0504, or if we convert that into a percentage, 5.04%. Then for the tax-exempt bond, or the municipal bond, since, oh my gosh, I'm sorry guys, handwriting is a mess today. Okay. City bond. Our after-tax rate of return equals our pre-tax rate of return of 5% times 1 minus our tax rate of 0%, which equals 0.05 or 5%. So now we're at the very end. Which investment should we choose? When I look at all three options, I want to choose the one that has the highest after-tax rate of return. And of the three, the stock has the highest rate of return. So oh my gosh, sorry. Forgot I was still on my highlighter. We should pick the stock. All right, for the last part, it's always helpful to know what our limits are, what we can and cannot do. So for conversion strategies, there are limits that prevent a taxpayer from changing the nature of expenses and income. And also, implicit taxes can reduce or eliminate the advantages of conversion strategies. On top of that, I know the slide doesn't mention it, but other things that can limit conversion strategies: depreciation recapture rules, and also any luxury automobile depreciation rules. Those can all potentially limit how we convert transactions from one type to another. All right, we are almost to the end. I appreciate y'all sticking with me, and let's wrap up chapter 3.